How's it going, everyone? I am back with another video. It's been a hot minute since I last recorded. I think it's almost been like 2 months to the day, actually. So I apologize for that. I did not intend to go that long without uploading. I've just had an extremely busy summer, been very busy, so I very much apologize for that. I had a bunch of off-season content I was going to do, but unfortunately, just couldn't get to it. So I apologize for that. But on the bright side, I am back. Should have some. My schedule should be fairly open, at least in the short term. Hopefully, I plan to come out with weekly content like I did last year. Hopefully, a couple videos a week. Uh, during the NFL season recaps, predictions, all that good stuff. Hopefully, my good friend Dylan and I can schedule a time for a podcast. We've been trying to hammer that out, but like I said, I've been busy. Dylan's been busy, so it's been hard to find a time to collaborate with each other. But that's okay. We're gonna figure it out. Anyway, my video now is going to be a different type of a video. It's going to be, I guess, not a sequel, but sort of it's a good follow-up point on my last video, which I basically predicted the over-under for each team's win total. I didn't like base this off that. I honestly forgot 100% what teams I said definitively will go over under. But basically, this is my preseason predictions video for the season. I went through each team's games, every one of their games, week 1 through week 18, predicted a win loss, gave them a record, picked the division standings, the playoffs awards, all that good stuff. So yeah, I'm going to be going through that here. This was a major pain in the ass to make. Uh, so I'll preface by saying that. And what I mean by that is, starting off early, it wasn't that bad. So, like the first couple teams here, like the AFC East teams, it wasn't that bad. However, when I get to, like later, like, how do I describe this? When I get to teams, Jesus Christ, I'm having an aneurysm here. I'm sorry, guys. When I get to teams, like later, like in the stage here, I go through these couple teams. Let's say I get to the AFC North here at the end, which is kind of blocked off. We'll get to it eventually. I have, like one team on the left here, like a reasonable record that I think they'll get. And then I have a team, based off, oh, I have this team beating this team. So I've getting a loss there. And then I'm like, well, their record is worse or much better than I really think they'll do. So maybe I'll dock them. Then I have to go back to the team that I'm docking them or the loss per se. And then I have to adjust their schedule. And then I go there and it's a repeat process. So basically, I did a horrible job explaining that. I'm sorry. It's. I know what I'm saying in my head, but it's hard to explain. Hopefully, you guys understand. Even though I'm doing a terrible job explaining it, hopefully, it makes some sort of sense at least. Um, but basically, what I'm trying to say is most of these, I know this is by no means, barring some miracle, going to be 100% accurate. There's like a 1 in a million chance, probably even more than that, that it will be. Basically, I think it's my rough predictions. It's my official predictions, I guess. Maybe my 1.0 predictions. I probably won't do a 2.0, but we'll just say my 1.0 predictions, my official predictions as of now, for each team, how I think the season's going to play out. But I know it's not going to be perfect. Like, there's a couple teams that I have a record for them, and I'm like, yeah, this is probably too low. But again, because of that, trying to adjust for every team for the most realistic record, I basically had to sacrifice. All right, I think it's this team is more likely to get 7 wins, even though I don't think they'll get more than that. Than it is that this team's only going to get 2 wins or 3 wins per se. Hopefully that makes sense. It's just how the math adds up. Major pain in the ass. This is the third year I've done it this way in Excel. I think I'm probably going to change the format up differently next year. This was a major pain in the ass. But anyway, how it's going to work here. So over each team, I have the opponent, and I have either a green box, that means a win, or a red box, that means I had them losing that game. So right now they're all black, so I can go one at a time, like each team at a time. If this is like taking a while, I don't know how I'm just kind of ramble on here. If this is taking a while, I may break it up into different parts, like AFC, NFC, then awards and playoffs. Maybe a couple different videos, maybe just one video. See how I'm doing through the video here, basically, and I'll just take it from there. Excuse me a second and take a sip of water. Okay, that is really refreshing. Jesus. Anyway, let's get to it here. So, first team we have my team, the Patriots. So, I have the Patriots finishing 11-6 this season. And I know right off the bat, this is probably going to ruffle some feathers, probably starting a bit controversial here. However, and yes, I'm a Patriots fan, so, you know, you may say I'm biased, which may be fair, but I mean, just yeah, hear me out, hear me out. We got an upgrade in the coaching staff with Mike Vrabel over Gerard Mayo. Like, I actually do kind of feel bad for what happened to Gerard Mayo, but I don't think he was the guy, period. I've talked about that throughout my channel a bit. Mike Vrabel, I think, was the perfect hire for us. I think he is a significant upgrade over Mayo. Offensive coordinator, we got Josh McDaniels back. Obviously, he was extremely subpar, but he failed as a head coach. He had multiple stints as a head coach. Well, yes, only two stints, but failed in both of them, Denver and Vegas. But however, he's a really good offensive coordinator, and this is home for him. And we saw in his Mac Jones' rookie year when Josh McDaniels is still here, his last year as the OC. Mac Jones looked really good. He made the Pro Bowl, which yes, he was an alternate. So little side note there, take as is that he was an alternate. And then we all know, unfortunately, what happened to Mac Jones after that. But that was his best year, and I think Drake May has much more talent and is better than Mac Jones. And I think just from a roster standpoint, we significantly upgraded the roster. Our defense, I think if it stays healthy, it has potential to be one of the best in the league. I definitely think around top 10, around there, I think. And Mike Vrabel, I think he always had his defenses playing well in Tennessee, and I think this is probably the best defense he's had on paper. Honestly, probably the best roster he's had on paper. And with the Titans, kind of mediocre, sort of talented, but not the best rosters, he always did well with them outside of kind of his last 2 years, specifically the 2022 season where they kind of collapsed. They were, 6-2, and then they, finished with a below 500 record, like 7-10, I'm pretty sure. Then obviously 23 got fired. That wasn't a great year for them. But even like those 2 years, even the collapse, they were in the games. The 6-win season he had with Will Levis his last year, they were in a good amount of games. But yeah. Let's see. Yeah, offensive line, that's the big concern I have for us. It's a bit shaky, but I think it's certainly an upgrade from last year. Receivers, obviously, we're not, like the best receiving core in the league, but Diggs, I think, will be really productive for us. Pop Douglas, I really like. Keyshawn Boutte had a good chemistry with May last year. I think those guys will be really good. Matt Collins was pretty underrated with the Bills last year. He made some big catches. He'll be a nice piece for us. TreVeyon Henderson, haven't even talked about him yet. He is the bright spot. We killed it in the draft, I think, this year, and I'm really happy that we took him. I got him in one of my dynasty leagues. I have a couple of drafts left to do before the season starts. I'm hoping to get him. That would be nice. I've only done one full draft because my dynasty league we just drafted rookies, but my full draft he went. Oh God, last night where did he go? He went not one of the he went sort of in the middle, I think. Honestly, kind of early on, if I remember right. And it's just one draft, it's not a big sample size, but hopefully, that puts some perspective on it. TreVeyon Henderson, I think, is going to be a beast. Ramondre Stevenson, the fan base is kind of down on him. I think Henderson's going to take over Stevenson, especially as the season progresses. But I still like Stevenson. He's going to fix his fumbles, so that was a big issue. And then Gibson, even last year, as disastrous as our season went and as awful as our offense and line was in our run game, Gibson was pretty productive last year, and we got him back. Basically, yes, we won 4 games, so predicting the next season for us to win 11 might make me sound insane. However, excuse me here. Vegas also has us favorite in 11 games, at least when the schedule first came out and like shortly after, unless they changed it. I don't think they have. I could be wrong, but I don't think they have. Now, of course, I'm not just basing it off Vegas. And another thing, in addition to the coaching upgrades, the staff upgrades, and the significant roster upgrades, significant staff upgrades do, the schedule is extremely favorable. So let's see here. So we got the Raiders week one. Now the Raiders, I'll talk about when I get to them, but their schedule. They make me nervous week one because I think they're going to be a difficult team early in the season. Because I think at worst, any Pete Carroll coach team is going to be like mid, and it's you don't know what you're preparing for week one. So you get a new offensive coordinator, the Chip Kelly, you get the Pete Carroll in there with new schemes. Patrick Graham's been there a while. He's a really underrated defensive coordinator. So maybe the defense will stay relatively the same. But the Raiders the past couple of years had a really solid defense. Maybe not statistically, but I think they played solid defense the past couple of years. I really like Patrick Graham. And Genty. So a lot of unpredictability week one. However, the same can be said for us. We get a lot of new schemes. And yet Terrell Williams, I like that hire. DC Lions defensive line coach last year. Even with all those injuries, they were playing good up front. And Vrabel brought a lot of his Tennessee staff over. Terrell Williams is one of them from Tennessee. I like the hire there too. But sorry, I'm getting off topic here. So the schedule. I mean, let's see. We play the Panthers. No offense to them, that should be a win at home. The Saints, I think, not to spoil it, but I don't think anyone has much high hopes of the Saints. The Titans, same thing. The Browns, same thing. Jets, same thing. The Falcons, that could be an interesting game, but I think we're better than the Falcons. Should win that game. Giants, that could be a potential trap game. Bills, see, I have a splitting with the Bills. That's probably going to be controversial. However, we're coming off the bye, extra week to prepare, and we've split with them the past 2 years. Now, yes, last season it was against their bench players, and we played our starters. So really, that comes in an asterisk. But still, at the year prior, we split with them too. Vrabel, from what I remember, he seems to play the Bills like pretty tight. I remember the COVID year, the Titans gave the Bills their first loss and they like blew them out. That was a weird game. It was like the only game on. I forget, it was like a Tuesday game, I think, or something like that because of COVID delays. Weird. That was just a weird season in general. I know 2022 the Titans got bombarded by them, but 21 Vrabel beat them too. So Bills. I have a splitting with them. Dolphins, I also have a splitting. I think we'll at least get one. Pittsburgh, that game could go either way, but I'll give us the win there. That has a very low score, defensive, grinded out game written all over it. Yeah, Miami, we always have trouble on the road in Miami. And even though I'm not the Dolphins, I think, get a lot of problems this season. I very well could see us winning this game, but the Dolphins start off hot under Mike McDaniel every year and then kind of fade as the year goes on. So I'll just give us a loss there. Now, again, this is probably when it gets a bit iffy because I have us, going into week 10. Let's see. 3, 4, 5, 7-2. Is that really going to happen? That's a bit of a question there, but fuck it. Why not? I'll stick with it. The Bucks, I have us losing that game on the road. I also have us, yeah. So the games I have us losing outside of the Miami game and at the Jets game. So I think I feel fairly confident saying we'll lose to the Ravens on the road, probably the Bengals on the road, probably the Bucks, probably the Bills. Miami, I think we could win, but I think we'll probably lose that game. The Jets, I just have that as a trap game for us. We very well could win it, but obviously I think we're better than the Jets. But trap game, maybe not necessarily that Vrabel will fall into the trap game, but maybe the Jets just have really good performance. We just don't have it that day. I have us losing there. Excuse me here. So yeah, I have us at 11-6. Very optimistic on our team this year. Excuse me. Jesus Christ, I'm dying here. Okay, next team, Bills. I have the Bills at 12-5. Uh, the Bills, I think it's going to be similar to what we've had the past couple of years. Regular season juggernaut, just play really good in the regular season. And, then they inevitably meet the Chiefs in the postseason, and we all know what happens then. This game can go either way, playing the Ravens week one, but I'll get to the Ravens. I'm pretty high on the Ravens this year, so I have them actually losing that game. I think Baltimore is going to be on a mission this year. Uh, at Jets, Miami, New Orleans. Maybe you can argue the Miami game, maybe the Jets game. You can argue, the Jets will be tough early on. New scheme, you don't know what to expect, but I think I'm fairly confident they'll win those games. Uh, I have us losing at Buffalo, so by default, I have the Bills winning this game. Atlanta, I think this will be a trap game. Very well. See, this was another one. So for the Falcons example, I was talking about earlier I was trying to explain that probably made no sense whatsoever. I had the Falcons winning less games, and I really think that they realistically are going to win. And so I'm going to their schedule. And I'm like, all right, you know what? I think I'll give them a a win against the Bills because I'm like, Bills be on a win streak. Maybe they get caught here. Falcons, I don't think are going to be great this season, but they'll be a sneaky team, I think. So I'm like, you know what? I'll give them a loss there. Uh, Panthers, I had them winning, especially off the bye. Chiefs, they always beat in the regular season, but definitely could lose that game. Miami, I had them winning. Bucks, I had them winning. Houston really gave them trouble last year. Josh Allen had like 9 completions. They still almost won the game, but Josh Allen really struggled. I think the Texans defense is going to be even better this season. So, especially on the road, I have them losing that one. Pittsburgh, they could lose that game, but that'll be a low scoring game. Cincy, they very well could win the game, but I just really like the way the Bengals match up against the Bills. Maybe not how the Bengals defense matches up against the Bills offense, but to me, like I just remember even the 2022 season when they matched up in the division round, the Bills were favored, which made sense. They were at home, but I felt really confident the Bengals were going to win that game. They won 27-10, if I remember right, just kind of dominated the game. And then the year after was the Damar Hamlin game. But if that didn't happen, I think the Bengals were going to win that game fairly comfortably. And then the year after that, the Bengals beat them too. So I just like the way the Bengals match up against them. So I'm giving them a loss there. Then I have them losing to us, as I mentioned earlier, and them beating the Browns. Philly, that game can go either way, but why not? I'll give them a win at home. That'll be a tough one. I'll give them that one. Then the Jets, I have them winning. So I have them at 12-5. Dolphins, I have them at 7-10. Right? Shit, hang on. Okay, yeah, 7-10. Just double checking there. My math's right. Now, I originally had them at 8-9, but again, just defaulting, trying to balance everything out, I docked them a loss. The Dolphins, to me, just have bad vibes going into the year. You get the whole Tyreek thing, that seems like a mess. It just seems like joint practices, they're apparently getting dominated, like the Lions specifically, for example. You get Tua's health, unfortunately, is a question all the time. Their defense, there's some questions there, even though they actually were like pretty solid. I think they were the 4th-ranked defense or something overall last season, which was a bit surprising. Defensive question, just bad vibes to the Dolphins, it feels like, and I think that's going to translate into the regular season. However, like I said, they always start off hot under Mike McDaniel, so I have them winning the first two. Very well could lose either of these games, and I'll have them win those two. I have them losing into Bills. Jets, I'll have them win. Panthers, that's an upset loss. Panthers, I think, could be a bit of a sleeper team. I originally had them winning that game, but again, I had to dock them because of trying to balance everything out. Chargers, I had them losing. Browns, Falcons, I had them winning. Baltimore, Buffalo, I have them losing. By the way, if you see an A in front of the team, that means at, so like a road game. And then if you see an asterisk like this, like for that means it's an international game in the morning. So for example, in the morning at least, like at the U.S. I mean, from a U.S. perspective. So this one's in Madrid against the Commanders. I had them losing that. I have them beating the Saints. Sorry, Saints. Then I had them losing to the Jets. Upset. Jets, I think could a bit frisky. And the Dolphins, it feels like Mike McDaniel usually collapse in the second half of the year. Have them losing the Bengals, have them beating the Bucs because I'll talk about it. The Bucs, I feel like week 17 with Todd Bowles is like cursed. Um, then week 18, I had them losing to us. So I had them finishing at 10-7. Just bad vibes, I think. Not too high in the Dolphins. I could see them, having a good year, maybe even winning up to like 10-ish games around there. But if everything goes right, but I just don't like the vibes of the Dolphins going into the season. Okay, Jets. So yeah, the Jets I think are gonna have a rough year. Um, hang on a second. Oh yeah, sorry. Jets I think will have a rough year. However, I think even though I have them at 5-12, again, I originally had them at 6. I kind of feel more comfortable with 6, but whatever, I'll stick with 5. Again, try to balance everything out here. I think even though I had them losing 11 games, I think a lot of them could be close. They'll probably have some bad blowout losses, but I think some of them might be close. They also have a really tough schedule. I mean, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, that is tough to open the year. Maybe they could upset the Steelers week 1, but I really don't think they'll be beating the Bills week 2. At Tampa week 3, that seems like a disaster in the making. Although week 3 is kind of cursed under Todd Bowles too. The past couple seasons feels like they've lost week 3 every year since he's been head coach there. And last year was against Denver, who was 0-2 and looked not good at all going in that game against the 2-0 Bucs, and everyone thought the Bucs were going to win, and they lost. They got blown out, so who knows? Um, at Miami, I had them losing, and then I had them beating Dallas because I feel pretty confident they're going to lose the first 4 games here. I think they'll lose to Denver and London, the Panthers, and the Bengals. And I'm like, do I really see them, not winning a game up until the Browns week 10? And I'm like, all right, I'll give them a win. I'm like, Dallas is a team that randomly loses to an inferior team. So I'm like, why not? I'll give them a win against the Cowboys. Maybe Aaron Glenn dials up something. The Cowboys, struggling early on, something like that. They very well could beat the Panthers, especially at home, but whatever. Trying to balance everything out here. After the bye, I had them beating the Browns. Losing to us, certainly losing to the Ravens. I have them beating the Falcons. That'll be a close game. Dolphins, I have them upsetting. Jags could win, but I had them losing. Saints, I had them losing. Certainly couldn't win that one, though. Have them beating us in that upset I mentioned earlier. And then I had them losing to the Bills. So, if you unwrap everything there, these are the division standings I have for the AFC East. So I have Bills, us, Patriots, Dolphins, and Jets, respectively 1-4. I feel fairly confident that these will be the standings as far as record. I certainly think the Bills will be like a 12, maybe at worst 11, 11 win team at worst, maybe 10 if things really go south. 12, 13 win team. Us, I think our floor is probably around like 7. And our ceiling is, honestly, you can probably argue 11 or 12. So yeah, I have that. Dolphins, I mentioned, even though I have them at 7-10, I could see them doing a lot better, getting a couple more wins. Jets, I think at most will win around 7 games, but I think that's pushing it. I think their floor is like 4 though. Jets, I don't think will be as bad. Obviously, I think they'll be bad at 5-12, but I don't think they'll be as bad as what a lot of people are expecting. I think they'll be a frisky team. Okay, moving on to the NFC South. Yeah, spoiler alert, this division is not too high on. Like most people. I have the Texans at 11-6. I had them at 10-7 originally, which I kind of feel better than over 11-6. But again, trying to balance everything out here. I had them losing to the Rams first week. Could go either way. Bucks at home, bounce back game, Monday Night Football. I have them winning that game. Jags, I had them winning, although the Jags could be tough early on. New, with Liam Cohen, new scheme and everything. Titans, I have them winning that one. At Baltimore, obviously it was last season, but we really saw what happened when these two teams played on. Was that? It was on. Yeah, I believe it was. I'm pretty sure it was on Christmas. They just absolutely annihilated the Texans. The only points the Texans got were off of safety. The bye, they're at Seattle. That could be a. They very well could lose that game. The Seahawks could are another frisky team. I'll talk about them in a bit. But I had them winning that game. I had them beating the Niners, which they very well could lose that game. I have them beating Denver, could lose that. Jags, I think at home they'll win that one. So again, I have them at what here? 7-2. So again, they'll probably realistically be like 6-3, 5-4, something like that. But again, I'm just gonna stick with my picks here. At Tennessee, I had them losing. Trap game. Well, maybe not a trap game. It's a division game. The Titans beat them last year, and I think the Titans this year are going to have games where Cam Ward and the offense are really clicking, and then there's going to be some games where they look like a mess. I think this game is going to be the game where it looks like they are clicking, things are in the right direction. They'll win that one in an upset. The Titans, I mean. Bills, I had them winning. I meant when I was breaking it down early, the Bills, really gave Josh Allen and the offense some issues last season. I think it'll happen again this year. Indy, I had them losing. They really should sweep the Colts, but the Colts, even like the past couple years under Shane Steichen, even though their roster a lot of the time is a bit worse than the other team, they steal a lot of games. I feel like they are well coached, even though they don't have the greatest record. Chiefs, I had them losing. Cardinals, Raiders, I had them winning. Chargers, I had them losing. Then Indy, I had them losing. So I had the Texans at 11-6. Okay, Jaguars. I have the Jags at 6-11, correct? Yeah, 6-11. I have the Jaguars here. I have the Jags beating the Panthers to open the year at home. That could go either way, but I'll give them the win there. And then they get a tough stretch. I think they'll definitely lose at Cincy. Houston, I think they'll lose at San Fran and the Chiefs. That's just a rough stretch for them there. Seattle, I have them upsetting at home. Even though I had them going 0-4 in the stretch here, they certainly can steal at least one. I think they'll be competitive early on, especially. Again, new coach, new scheme, going to be tough to game plan for. Even though obviously the Rams, I think everyone would agree, are a much better overall team, at least on paper, going into the year than the Jaguars. It's at London, and the Jaguars are, for whatever reason, like the greatest team in NFL history in London. So I'll just give them the win there. Especially excited to again, trying to balance everything. I had to dock the Rams a game. I had the Rams winning that one originally. Coming off the bye, the Raiders, I'll get to them, but I feel like the Raiders, as I kind of was talking about with us a bit earlier, the Patriots week 1, I think they'll be mid, and I think, the games at home, like against a similarly skilled team, I think they'll probably win most of those this season. At Houston, that's a loss. Chargers, I had them losing that one. At Arizona, loss. At Tennessee, they very well could win, but why not? I'll give the Titans that one. Indy Jets, I have 2 wins there. At Denver, that'll be an ugly game, I think. At Indy, have them splitting. Then the Titans, I have them winning that one. So I had the Jags at 6-11. I honestly could see them, if things really click, I could see them being like an 8-win team, maybe even 9. But we shall see. I had them at 6-11. Okay, Titans are up here. Titans, I'm not too optimistic on them. I think they'll definitely be better than last year. I had them at 5-12. Like I said, I think there's going to be some weeks Cam Ward and the offense are really clicking. Things are moving in the right direction. There's going to be some weeks where it's like, Jesus Christ, like what the hell is happening here? Their defense is pretty solid on paper. It was really solid last year for the most part too. Um, but yeah, I'm Denver. I had them losing that one. Rams, that's a loss. Indy, I had them winning. At Houston, loss. Cardinals, loss. A loss here. They could steal one of these games. They're sort of similarly matched to at least these first three teams. I feel like Chargers, I think, are a bit ahead of them, but I had them losing those ones. Coming off the bye, that's the Houston upset I have happening as I have over here on Houston's schedule. Seattle, that's a loss. That'll be. I think Mike McDonald's really going to give the Titans some issues there offensively. Jags have a win at Cleveland. They certainly could win that game, but at Cleveland, I think. Sorry, I'm getting the sniffles here. At Cleveland, I think they'll. How do I don't know. I just feel more comfortable with the Browns. I think the Browns randomly will just have a good performance in this one. San Fran and KC, yep, those are definite losses. I think New Orleans, I had them winning, and then the Jags, I had them losing. They could be. I could see. Let's see. I had them at 5. They certainly could win this Cleveland game. That's 6. Um, maybe if I could see them getting 7 wins at most, maybe 8, but that is really stretching it. If 8 of Cam Warren, the offense are just clicking the whole year. But I think Brian Callahan, I honestly am surprised he didn't get fired last season at the end of last year. I think this is going to be his last year. I think he'll be fired. I don't think he's a very great head coach. Okay, moving on here. Colts, this is a really tough one for me. I had the Colts at 7-10, but honestly, I had them at 8-9 originally. I think I kind of feel more comfortable with 8-9, but I had them at 7-10, maybe even 9-8, or maybe even 10-7 for the Colts here. As I said earlier, I think Shane Steichen is a really good offensive coach. Now they announced recently, was it like a couple days ago now, maybe a week ago? I think it was a couple days ago that Daniel Jones is going to start over Richardson. Now, what a QB competition that is! My God, I think it was the right choice. I think Anthony Richardson certainly is more upside than Daniel Jones, but I think Daniel Jones is definitely the better quarterback between the two of them. At least what we've seen from Richardson now. Now, when I say that, it's Daniel. I don't think Daniel Jones is a good quarterback, really. However, I don't think he's as bad as a lot of people in the media may come out to be. I think him and Shane Steichen's offense is perfect. I think it's going to be similar to what we've seen with Minshew 2 years ago when Richardson went down extremely early on in the year and Minshew took over and led them to a 9-8 season. I think their offense is going to have similar production to how it panned out that season, and their defense with Lou Anarumo, blanking on his name for a second. Now, Lou Anarumo, a lot of people down on him because obviously the Bengals defense was a complete disaster last year. I think Lou Anarumo was actually a pretty solid defensive coach. Last year was kind of an outlier. They were just a mess last year, health wise, things like that. And the back half of the year when they went on that win streak, their defense actually picked it up and played pretty good. It ended the year at Pittsburgh. They kind of got bailed out. I think it was an overthrow or a drop. I forget exactly from the Steelers, but they held on in that game defensively to win the game and give them a chance to go to the postseason. Obviously, that didn't happen. And then even that Denver game, the Denver didn't get a first down in overtime, so they held there, even though they nearly blew it. When Denver tied the game at the end there. But anyway, getting off top here. My point is, I think Julian Edelman was a good fit with the Colts. I think their defense will be solid, even though the Colts they're a pretty balanced team. I had them at 7-10. I very well could see the record flipped. I honestly wouldn't at all be surprised that's the case. Running through their schedule here, again, very well could win that game. Denver, they probably should lose that game, but I don't see them starting 0-4 here. So I'll give them that one. It's more likely they'll beat the Titans than Denver, but I'll give the Titans that one. Rams, I think they'll lose. Raiders, Cardinals, I had them winning. Could go either way. Chargers, I think they'll lose that one. Fairly confident. Titans, I think they'll win. Pittsburgh, that'll be a low score game, I think. Then this is a Berlin game with the Falcons. That very well. I had them winning that game originally, but then when I was again going to the Falcons schedule, I gave them the Falcons that win because I didn't originally had the Falcons with a lot more losses than I thought, so I docked the Colts there because I thought the number of wins I had the Falcons is I don't know how to describe it. I thought the record, if I docked the Colts, okay, how to describe this? If I docked the Colts a loss here against the Falcons, I thought that was more likely than what I had the Falcons record being at the time of doing so. If that makes any sense. Coming off the bye at Chiefs, yep, that's a loss, unfortunately, I think. Houston, I had them winning. Jags, Seattle, couldn't win both those games. More likely the Jags, and I had them losing both. San Fran, now obviously they should lose to the Niners if they're going to lose to the Jags and Titans, teams like that. However, I think that'll be an upset. Colts, trying to they'll probably be not mathematically, but on life support for the playoffs at this point. But trying to make a last ditch effort. Maybe they'll win that one. Jags had them winning in at Houston. I had them losing that one. So with that said, here's my NFC South AFC South standing. So I have the Texans at 11-6 winning, Colts 7-10 second, Jags 6-11 third, and then Titans in last at 5-12. Yeah, I feel pretty confident these are going to be, again, not necessarily record wise, but I think these will be the standings in real life. I feel fairly confident, at least 1-4 in the AFC East and AFC South. I feel fairly confident that these will be the standings. But yeah, Jags I could see doing better. Titans I feel kind of confident around 5. That's a good number for me, I think. Indy, pessimistic, I guess, on them record wise, but I think even the losses will be close. Very well could have the record flipped. Very uneasy at 7-10 there. Texans, Stroud hopefully gets back to form, kind of the sophomore slump. Just promoted their coordinator, I believe their quarterback's coach, from the top of my mind. I'm still not in football mode at all. I've just been so busy this summer. I haven't really been able to focus on football. So I might get some things wrong here. I think I'm right, though. But anyway, I had them at 11-6. I feel fairly confident those will be the standings. Okay. I think I'm going to end the video after the AFC and make the NFC and then awards and playoffs 2 separate videos because I'm going a bit long here. So try to cut down there, give myself a break in between. I'm going to take a sip of water. Okay. Moving on here. My favorite team, the Chiefs. My favorite team, the Chiefs. Oh boy. They are an interesting one. The Chiefs are a very interesting team this year. I think the Chiefs are going to regress. Now, when I say that, I have them at 12-5. So, technically a 3-game regression. They'll still be one of the best teams record-wise in the league. When I say regress, I think they're going to, I don't even want to say look worse than last year, because even though last year they went 15-2 in the regular season, the whole story along the year was they're the worst 15-win team in NFL history. Nearly winning every game, just in ugly fashion. They're getting the refs to give them every crucial call. They're getting lucky ass plays like Isaiah, literally week 1, Isaiah Likely being out of bounds like an inch. The flag against the Bengals, the bobbled snap against the Raiders, the friggin' field goal that bounced off the upright in against the Chargers. They're just getting lucky shit all year. Just the block against Denver, and that was still a play, but how many times is a field goal getting blocked versus made in that situation? And yeah, the whole year was, everyone was saying that. And then, you take away the refs, take away the luck, and you get the Super Bowl where they play one of the worst games a team has played in recent memory. And of course, they stat padded where it looked like Mahomes he played one of the worst games quarterbacks played in the history of the league, I think, in that game. For Christ's sake, he played horrible. It looks like he didn't. He played good. If you just look at the stats, it looks like he played good in that game. because you got 2 garbage time touchdowns with the Eagles backups in the game. The real score is like it should be 40-6. Anyway, I think their defense will be good. However, their defense kind of the back half of the year, teams started to figure some things out. I think their defense will be really good, but I think it'll be a bit of a drop off from the prior 2 years where it's been elite. Their offense, the Chiefs' offense, I think it will be a bit better than last year. It was literally the definition of mid last year. It was a 16th out of 32, which is the literal definition of average, at least statistic ranking wise. Now, the reason that a big reason they won 15 games is because their defense always kept it a one-score game, and so the offense was able to do whatever they wanted. They could run it, they could take short gains. It was very methodical, a lot of long drives, time-consuming drives, just a lot of plays in each drive for the Chiefs last year. Now, this is going to sound obvious, but the key in general to beating the Chiefs, or a key, is to try to get up multiple scores on them and force them into pass situations. Now, obviously, that sounds like a obviously statement, but that could apply to any team, especially the Chiefs. But anyway, sorry, I just fucking hate the Chiefs so much. I cannot stand them. I'm just getting off topic here. I think they're going to regress this year. I actually originally had them at 11-6, and then I'm like, you know what? I actually think 11-6 is possible, but I'm like, I think 12 I feel a bit more comfortable on. They actually have a brutal schedule. They very well could lose week 1 to the Chargers, but I think they'll win that game. Philly, I had them losing to. The Eagles, I think they had some significant losses, mainly defensively this offseason, but I think Philly just matches up extremely well with them. Well, from Philly's perspective, the Chiefs, I think, match up extremely poor with them. So I had them losing that one. Again, maybe coming back from Brazil, the lawn flight, things like that. Giants, that could be an interesting game because the Giants, I'll get to them, but I almost, as a Patriots fan, I almost want to say I feel bad for the Giants because their schedule is absolutely brutal. That could be an interesting game because at this point it's only week 3. Everything's still at stake. So prime time too at New York, that could be interesting. Well, rather at New Jersey, but you know what I mean, at New York. But I had them win that one. Baltimore, I had them losing. Very well could win. Then I had them on a win streak. Jags, I think they'll beat. Detroit, that could go either way. That's a tough one, but I had them winning. I think the Lions are going to kind of struggle with the loss of both coordinators this season, mainly Ben Johnson. Aaron Glenn, I think they'll miss, but not as nearly as much as Ben Johnson. Raiders, I had them winning. Washington could go either way. I had them winning. Buffalo, as I mentioned with the Bills, they always lose to the Bills in the regular season and beat them in the postseason. Coming off the bye, I think Denver definitely they very well could. I mean, the Chiefs very well could sweep Denver this year, but I think Denver is going to at least get one of the two. I think they'll at least split. Now, coming off a bye, I feel a bit uneasy. In general, I feel a bit uneasy predicting a loss at Denver, especially coming off the bye with Andy Reid. But why not? I'll do it. Indy, I had them winning. At Dallas, I had them winning. Houston, I had them winning. Chargers, I had the Chargers splitting with them. I mean, the Chargers, even though they got swept by them last year, you can argue that they watched the first game. I think the Chargers got thoroughly outplayed. The second game, the Chargers were so close. They nearly had them. And the Chargers significantly upgraded, as I'll talk about in a minute here. Titans, yep, that'll be a bloodbath, I fear. Denver, I had them winning, then Raiders, I had them winning. So again, 12-5, typical for the Chiefs. That's what we expect. Not as dominant record-wise as the prior season, but I think this season they're going to look similar to how they did the last season, and they just won't have every single luck or ref call go in their favor, or basically, someone put it well in a YouTube video I was watching. I forget the name of the content creator, so I apologize. I don't mean to rip him off here, but he basically said, I don't remember his exact wording, so I'll paraphrase it from what I remember. But he basically said the Chiefs, like every single play that could go 50-50, they got like 90% of them, if not more, to go in their way, especially the crucial ones. Now, what are the odds of that happening again? Now, I think the Chiefs had the single luckiest season in the history of professional sports last season. I think they're honestly one of the worst teams to make the Super Bowl in history. I just fucking hate them so much. You can't tell, I've talked about it so much in my videos. Um, Basically, so their season last year reminded me a bit of the 22 Vikings. Now, I think that last year's squad was better than the 22 Vikings. The 22 Vikings, I picked them to beat the Giants in that wild card game. Was not at all surprised they lost it, but I would have had they would have played the Niners. If I remember right, in the division round, I think the Niners would have blown them out. I don't think the Vikings were really a 13-4 team in 2022. Not to the extent of the Chiefs, but maybe not lock, but every single game went to the wire at the end. Not every game, but a lot of their games went to the wire at the end. They're winning in dramatic fashion. And then we saw the following season, specifically to open the year. The first couple weeks, they're losing, in dramatic fashion. They're having, you know, the end of the game plays that went for them go against them and they lose. I think the Chiefs are going to have a similar season to that. I'm not saying that they're of a losing record like the Vikings did that following year. Plus, the Vikings, a quarterback carousel that year too. That was when Kirk tore his Achilles. They had the Pastronaut come in, but maybe not to the extent it'll cost them games. But and this also, what did we see as a big Patriots fan, biggest Tom Brady fan on the planet? I always say, what happened in Super Bowl 55? We all know the Bucs absolutely demolished the Chiefs. And then what happened the following year? The Chiefs were only 3-4, 7 games in, and their offense outside of a couple games was really showing some struggling signs there. And then they kind of turned it on and finished 12-5 and won out. They won out. They lost that Bengals game. Besides that, they won the rest of the regular season games. I could see a start here. I sort of do. I had them starting 2-2, and then kind of winning out or winning the majority of their games from there. But even these games, a lot of the games. Oh shit, that has changed something. A lot of the games I had them winning, I very well could see them losing. Now I don't think that they're gonna miss the playoffs or anything like that, but 12-5, I could see maybe 11-6. Obviously, it's only one game less, but I just think the Chiefs this year, their luck is going to revert back to neutral, and that the luck they had last season is gonna come back to haunt them. And for every fan outside of Kansas City, if that happens, we'll be smiling when it does. Okay, anyway, onto the Chargers here. This was a really tough one for me. I had the Chargers originally at 12-5, and I had them losing to the Chiefs on tiebreaker, the second tiebreaker. But again, trying to balance everything out here, I docked them one, and I had them at 11-6. Now that's tough for me because I'm a big Jim Harbaugh guy. I'm a Michigan fan, so I like Jim Harbaugh. But one thing about Jim Harbaugh is he always improves. Like every year, it feels like, at least like from a win perspective. Now the Chargers won 11 games last year, and I think they got like significantly better. They definitely got Herbert some more help. They got Najee Harris. They got Hampton in the draft. I think the Chargers like significantly got better offensively. Now defensively, again big Michigan. Well, I'm a Michigan fan. I'm not like a diehard Michigan fan, but Michigan's like my college team. So I like Jesse Minter too. Jesse Minter did a great job last year. The Chargers had the top scoring defense. They finished like one less point allowed than the Eagles, I'm pretty sure. So I think the defense will be really good. Not a cause for concern there. And I think the offense will be better. And so they won 11 games last year. So they really only going to win 11, well, only 11, but are they going to just win 11, not improve again from a win total this year? That's a tough one. However, their wins, I feel fairly confident they're going to win all of the games I have them winning. Outside of that, at maybe these 3 games, I feel a bit iffy on, specifically the Chiefs and Houston game, especially since we saw what Houston did to them in the playoffs. But their losses, I feel decent that they'll lose to the Chiefs. I really hope I'll be rooting otherwise. I don't give a shit if my picks wrong. I want the Chiefs to lose every game. Washington could go either way, but I'll slightly lean Washington, although I could see the defense really putting together something for Jane Daniels. Minnesota could go either way. Pittsburgh could go either way. Philly, I think they'll lose that one. Then at Denver, they very well could win that game because they swept Denver last year, but I have them losing that one. Basically, just I'm confident that they'll win the games I have them winning, and the games I have them losing, I'm not overly confident on that, but I'm leaning. So, um, and I'm like, do I really see the Chargers, like a 13 win team, 12 win team being one of the elite teams? I think the Chargers will be a really good team this year. Do I think they'll be like, an AFC Super Bowl contender? Maybe a dark horse, but I don't think like a leading contender. So I have the Chargers at 11-6, but I'm extremely optimistic on them. I honestly don't think it's out of like if someone was to predict the Chargers to beat the Chiefs or out in the division, I really don't think that's too far fetched this season. The I mean the Chiefs are due, as I just talked about. I think they'll regress. Chargers, I think again they should have had the Chiefs. I think especially the second game, but the first game you can argue too. They were up 10-0, then kind of collapsed from there. They had a bad goal line sequence. When they were looking to tie the game up there, like late in the third quarter, if I remember right, it might have been at the start of the fourth. It's like week 3, if I remember early on. But anyway, I get off topic very easily here. My point is, I don't think it's too far fetched that the Chiefs are going to be challenged to the division this year. The Chargers very well could be that team to overtake them. Raiders, they're a really tough one. As I talked about, I think they're going to be a trap team this year. Now, I only have them at 6-11. Originally, I had them at 7-10. I kind of feel more confident at 7-10, but I'm going to stick with 6-11 here. I think the Raiders honestly could win like any game, and they very well could lose any game. However, the teams, some of their wins, for example, like I think they're evenly matched with the Jags. They're at home. I think they'll win that. Pete Carroll effect. Same with the Titans. Bears, I think the Bears are better than them, but at home, I think they'll be tough early on. I think the Raiders, I'm going to give them a slight edge. That'll probably be an upset. At Washington, that'll definitely, oopsies. At Washington, that'll be an upset. I had them losing to us and the Chargers, again, mapping things out correspondingly with the other team schedules here. Same with the Colts, same with the Chiefs. Denver had them losing. Browns. See, now they probably should win this game, but the Browns I'll get to soon. I really had to adjust some things to the Browns. And that was one of the adjustments I had to make. They'll probably honestly win that game, but just evening things out for the Browns here, I had to give them a loss there. See, I have them on a losing streak here. Do I really think they're going to lose all these games? Tough, but I have it happening very well. Philly and Houston, I think they'll lose those ones. Chargers do. Very well could win these two, Cleveland and Denver. Giants, I had them winning, and the Chiefs, I had them losing. Wouldn't be surprised if they split with the Chiefs. Raiders, I mean, the Raiders should have beaten them last year in Kansas City, but again, Chiefs get a lucky ass bobbled snap that wins them the game. Otherwise, Aiden O'Connell would be 2-0 against Mahomes. In Arrowhead both times too. But yeah, Raiders will be they're an interesting team. Trap team this year. I had them at 6 wins, but frisky team, I think. Okay, Denver. Denver is a tough one for me. Denver, I think, got better. However, I only have them matching their record of last season at 9-8. Well, mainly due to the fact they just have a tough schedule and balancing things out here. I originally had the Broncos at 10-7. Honestly, that's probably more likely than 9-8. But again, evening things out here, I had that 9-8, 9-10. I think, I feel fairly confident with that range. For the wins for the Broncos here. Let's see here. Yeah, Titans, I had them winning that. Colts probably should win that, but I had them losing. Chargers, I had them losing. Cincy, very well could lose that game, but I'll give them that one. At Philly, that'll be a mess for them, I fear. Did it again. At London against the Jets, I had them winning that. Giants, I had them in an upset loss. They probably should win that game. I think I had them winning that game originally. Then when I was balancing the Giants out, I gave them the loss here. Dallas, I had them upsetting, so that probably evens things out because they very well could have lose that game. Actually, probably should win both those games. At Houston, I had them losing. Raiders, Chiefs, I have 2 wins. Coming off the bye at Washington, very well could win, but I had them losing. Uh, Basically, I had them splitting every game from after their bye. Green Bay, they could win, but I think the Packers turn it on at the end of the year. They'll lose that. At KC, that's a tough one. Very well could win, but I have a loss there. And then the Chargers, I had them winning. So I only have Denver at 9-8, but I feel fairly confident. Maybe at most 11, but I think 9, 10, 11 around there is Denver's win range. People talking about Bo Nix having a sophomore slump. Could happen. I don't really think it's going to happen. I think he'll have a similar production to how he did last year, maybe a bit more. So there, can't talk. These are the AFC West standings I have. So Chiefs, Chargers, Denver, Raiders. I feel fairly confident with the standings, but record-wise, definitely. I think Chargers 11 or 12, I feel good with. Chiefs around 12, I feel good with. Denver, again, as I said, 9, 10, 11. Raiders around 7. Maybe if things really click, 8. Yeah, I feel fairly confident there. Okay, last division here, and then I'm going to end the video and break and make the rest of the tabs here 2 separate videos. Baltimore, I am really high in the Ravens this year. A lot of people are, but I'm really high in the Ravens this year. I think this is not do or die, but I just think this is going to be the year where things really really click for the Ravens. All right, let me respond to this text real quick. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, sorry. Anyway, their offense has been really consistent under Todd Monken. I think it'll be really good this year too. Their defense is shaky to start the year, and then like since week 12, Zach Orr made some adjustments, and they like the top ranked defense since then. It was kind of like similar to how Mike McDonald when he took over the Ravens, how things panned out there. And we saw how they went 14-3 the next year. I actually originally had them at 14-3. I had them beating the who did I think I had them beating the I think I had them beating the Rams, and then or it was either Rams or the Vikings. I think it was the Rams. But then I was like, do I really see them starting 8? No, I'm like, I could, but I'm like, and again, they very well. I think they'll definitely beat Cleveland. Actually, I think they'll definitely beat Cleveland, but they very well could lose the rest of these games in the first 9 weeks of the year. Well, Miami, I think they'll beat too. I guess they could lose that, but I think they'll beat the Dolphins. Houston, though, I think they'll be fairly confident. At Chiefs could go either way, but again, evening things out here, corresponding to the rest of the team schedules. I have them beating the Chiefs. Detroit, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's going to struggle early on, especially at home. I think the Ravens will take that one. At Buffalo, I really think the Ravens, like no disrespect to the Bills, but I think the Ravens beat themselves more than the Bills beat them. We saw the Ravens like bombarded them earlier in the year, in the regular season. And to me, the Ravens just beat themselves with just boneheaded plays, specifically the turnovers, and then Mark Andrews dropping the 2-pointer to tie it. Yeah, I just think the Ravens going to be on a mission this year. Lamar still has some good years ahead of him, but I just not that there's a sense of urgency quite yet, but I just think something about the Ravens this year is really going to click. The Steelers, I had them losing that game, mainly because the Steelers always play Lamar well defensively. And by this, actually, okay, I'll wait till I get to my Steelers prediction to talk about seeding. But basically, there's another specific reason why I had them losing that game. At Minnesota, I have that as an upset loss. They very well could win that. Cincy, I had them splitting with. Cincy got swept by them last year, but Cincy should have beaten them both times, honestly. At Green Bay, they could lose that, but I'm honestly fairly confident. I think their floor is 11, and probably their ceiling is like 15. I feel fairly confident around 12 or 13. I'm going to go 13 for the Ravens. And I will say, I used to be a Lamar hater. Like, I used to call him a running back, especially when he first came into the league. But probably, um, I would probably say since the 23, so 2 years ago now, like the 23 season, Lamar has kind of won me over. And I've been very impressed with the strides he's taken as a passer. And I was kind of it's hard to root for the Ravens as a Patriots fan. We had such a fun but competitive rivalry with them back in the day in our dynasty. But Lamar, he's kind of won me over. I kind of root for him a bit now when my team's out of it. So I'll be pulling for Lamar this year. Um, yeah. Okay. Bengals. Bengals, I think, will be much improved now. Actually, talk about timing. Hendrickson actually just re-signed with them on a 1 year, $30 million deal. Now they're probably just going to be in the same position next offseason, but at least they got Hendrickson re-signed because obviously I think the Bengals offense, I think it's going to be similar to how it was last year. I think it'll be arguably the top offense. Burrow, the offense, going to light it up all year. I think their offense will, be scoring a lot of points this year. Their defense, obviously, last year was the issue with the team. The defense, and again, it's just the preseason, but their defense has not looked too great so far in the preseason. Now, again, it's just the preseason. You don't want to take too much away, but that's all we really have to base it off now. Um, their defense, I think, could be. I don't think it's going to be good by any means, but I certainly think it should be improved. Hopefully, Al Golden is an upgrade over Anarumo. Uh, yeah, their defense, I think, could be rough, but I think it will be at least. It just has to be mid. Just make it so they don't have to score 30 points to win, 30 plus points to win every game, basically. Uh, the Bengals gotten off slow starts the past couple of years. They've started to play their starters more in the preseason to try to fix that. Well, the NFL did them a favor by putting them at Cleveland week one. Now the Browns, I'll get to the Browns. The Browns, all right, I'll just say it, spoiler a bit, but I don't have the Browns with a great record. I think the Browns actually could be a bit of a sleeper team. I don't think they'll be good, but they'll be like a team with a bad record, but very well could upset you, basically. And we've seen the Browns give the Bengals some issues in prior years. However, last year the Bengals swept them, even with their awful defense, and they're going to Joe Flacco in there. And, how long is Joe Flacco going to last? Who knows? A lot of questions at quarterback. Stefanski he's getting a lot of heat. Browns defense, I think, will be really solid this year. The Browns defense is going to keep them in games, kind of like it did last year for the most part, I think. With Jim Schwartz, I like Jim Schwartz. But anyway, I think they'll beat the Bengals week one, or the Browns out of week one. Then the Jags week two. Minnesota, I think they're Kevin McConnell, not McConnell, Kevin O'Connell. Big fan of him. I think he's going to draw a game plan that carves up that Bengals defense. At Denver, I think that could go either way, but I had them losing that. Detroit, I had them winning at home. That'll probably be an absolute shootout, but I'll give the Bengals that one. At Green Bay, could go either way, but I had them losing that one. Pittsburgh Jets, I get 2 wins there. Chicago could go either way. I originally had them winning that, but switched some things up. So I gave them a loss there. Coming off the bye at Pittsburgh, I had them splitting with the Steelers. I think they'll lose that one. I have them beating us, then losing to Baltimore, and then I had them winning out. I think they'll get hot at the end of the year. So what I had them at, 6-6. So it's going to be like 6-6. The pressure's on the Bengals. I think that's kind of when they play their best ball. We saw they were 4-8 last season, and then they won their last 5. 2022 they were struggling, and they won. They basically won out at the end there. At Buffalo, as I mentioned, I think they match up with them well. Feel good there. On the road, though, that's tough. Baltimore, I think, will be. Excuse me, I'm dying here. Baltimore, I have them splitting at Miami. I think they'll win. The Dolphins will be, in bad form at the end of the year. I think Cardinals, I had them winning. The Browns, I had them winning. So I had the Bengals at 11-6 this season. Steelers, they're a tough one. A lot of people are kind of down on the Steelers. I see some people predicting like 6 wins. I think that's ridiculous. Mike Tomlin, obviously, he's going to streak of at least staying 500 or better every year. Um, and we saw, last year. Well, the last year the Steelers were really good at the start of the year, and then they kind of collapsed at the end of the year. I think the Steelers, their defense, I think, will be one of the top units in the league. I would be shocked, not shocked, but I'd be a bit surprised otherwise. Their offense, I think, got better with Rodgers. Now, Rodgers, that's the big question, obviously. How is Rodgers going to look? I think this Steelers team is a really good fit for him. I mean, like I just said, you get the defense that's going to play well, probably, hold the opponent to, a relatively low score most of the time. You had Metcalf there. Rodgers, he didn't play, phenomenal by any means last season, but I don't think he played as bad as, a lot of people thought he did. He actually, if you just look at his stats, he had like a decent year, you can argue, but obviously the Jets were just a disaster last year. He didn't play great, but I just think, I mean, we kind of saw with Russell Wilson, he got booted out of Denver and he came to the Steelers and he looked good early on, and then kind of faded as the year, at the end of the year. Rodgers, I think, will be fairly consistent, probably put up, not MVP type stats, and I think he'll put up some decent stats. Um, and yeah, at the Jets week one. I think they'll win that game. Maybe an upset for the Jets. Could see that. Seattle, that'll be a low scoring game, but I had them winning that. I had them losing at us at the Patriots. That'll be another low scoring game. Had them losing to the Vikings in Ireland. Very well could win though, but I had them at 2-2. Certainly had them beating the Browns after the bye. Even the Browns did beat them last year in that weird Christmas Thursday night game, not Christmas, snow rather, Thursday night game. At Cincy, I had them losing. I had them beating the Packers, Colts, Chargers, Bengals. They honestly very well could lose all those games. I don't think they will. I had them winning all four actually. But Green Bay, I think at home they'll win that one. I think that'll be a low scoring game. Indy, that'll be close. I think they'll win. Chargers, I don't know. I just think I don't know. Even though the Chargers I think might be better than them on paper, I don't know. It's evenly matched, but I just think the Steelers match up with them well. Then Cincy, as I mentioned with the Bengals, I had them splitting. At Chicago, I think that'll be a game that the Bears offense really clicks for some reason. My gut's telling me that. Buffalo, I had them losing that. At Baltimore, I had them losing. Miami, I had them winning. Detroit, I think the Lions should have some things figured out by then. They'll lose that. Then Cleveland, Baltimore, I have them winning. Now, again, as I mentioned with the Baltimore at Pittsburgh, I think by then, spoiler alert, because I just had the Browns left. I guess if you do the math, you can figure it out. I have the Ravens as the 1 seed in the AFC here. So I think by week 18, they'll have it clinched and they'll be able to rest their starters. And I think that's what they're going to do. So yeah, that's the reason why I have the Steelers winning that game. So I had them at 10-7. I definitely, could see them beating Chicago, us, the Vikings. I could see like a 12, not a 12, maybe 11-ish, maybe 12 of things really click, but I feel fairly confident with 10. I think at minimum 9, but I feel fairly decent with 10. I kind of want to say 11, but I just see it was at 11-6 originally, but I'll stick with 10 here. Oopsies. Okay, Browns. Yeah, so sorry, Browns. Now, as I mentioned with the Browns, I do feel bad for the Browns here. I only have them at 3-14. I really want to give them more wins, but just look at this schedule. This is just brutal. Cincy, I mean, maybe an upset, but I think they'll lose. Baltimore, I think that's an absolute loss. Green Bay, I think that's a loss. At Detroit, that should be a loss. Now, the reason I had them winning this game, they probably should lose. The NFL kind of screwed the Vikings over. They have the London game, and then I forget exactly where, but they have another international game. I want to say like Berlin or something the following week. So, the Vikings. They have the London game, and then I think week 4 the Vikings or somewhere else international wise. So maybe jet lag. The Vikings kind of got screwed schedule wise there, back to back weeks there. So maybe, if I can jet lag, they're just tired, out of sync, something like that. Um, I had them winning. I had the Browns upsetting them that game. And I also didn't see the. I think they'll definitely lose at Pittsburgh, Miami. Miami, they could win, but I think Waddle and Tyreek could give them issues. I had them losing to us. I really didn't see them starting 0-8, so that's kind of why I gave them the win there. 1-7, I honestly think is a bit of a stretch too. They could win. They honestly could win Cincy, Green Bay, Miami. The rest of the games, I think they'll lose. Jets, they very well could lose that game. I think the Jets will have a good defensive game plan there. Baltimore, I had them losing. They did upset the Ravens with Jameis earlier last year. It was like kind of in the middle of the year. Um, yeah, Raiders, I had them winning. Very well could lose that. Niners, I had them losing. Titans, I had them winning. Chicago, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Cincy, that's 4 losses. Like I said, I honestly don't even think the Browns roster, like, even though I had them finishing at 3-14, I think they're better than the team finishes that's typically 3-14. I mean, just their line is a bit shaky. It definitely is worse than it has been in the past couple of years. I mean, receivers, they get Judy still. They get a couple nice pieces in Njoku, obviously at tight end. Um, but Joe Flacco, he obviously did really good with the Browns 2 years ago, and he did pretty good with the Colts last year too. But you have to imagine a full season of 40-year-old Joe Flacco. Is he really going to last? Maybe not health wise, I'm talking about, but performance wise, maybe he dips. And then they have some serious quarterback questions. Shador, Dylan Gabriel, Kenny Pickett. Who the hell knows? The defense could keep them in games. I think the defense will be decent like it was last year. I don't think it'll be as good as 2 years ago, and it was a really good defense. I think it'll be solid like it was last season. Keep them in some games. They'll have some games that they lose that are close, probably some bad blowout losses. Definitely could see them upsetting a good team or two in a shocker. But I think this is the year Stefanski gets fired. I'm honestly surprised they did not fire him at the end of last season. But I think this is the year he gets fired. He's already getting some question, like when he was benched Shador with the 2-minute draw opportunity. That would have been valuable experience, and you bench Shador. So people are already starting to shit on him prior to the year. He got some heat at the end of last year. But yeah, the Browns. I'm sorry, I'm just not too optimistic win loss wise on them. I'll be pulling for them though. I like the Browns. It'll be fun to see Flacco out there. So hopefully he can play pretty well. But yeah, those are my standings for the AFC North here. Feel fairly confident record wise with that. So, I mean, the Browns, I could see like 5, maybe even 6 wins if things click, but maybe 7. That might be stretching it. But yeah, 3 I feel is a bit low, but it's just kind of how the math adds up. You got to have a team or two like that. So yeah, these are my AFC standings. So you get Baltimore at 1, Bills 2, Chiefs 3, Texans 4. Those are the 4 division winners. KC lost Buffalo, so that's why the tiebreaker there. 5 and 6, Cincy and Chargers. Now this was an absolute pain in the ass. I had to go to the 4th tiebreaker, which was strength of victory, and the Bengals marginally got it there. And then I have us sneaking in at the 7th seed. And then below that I did 8 through 16 too. But yeah, those are the top 7 teams in the AFC. So I bolded them. Obviously, the top 7 make the playoffs. Yeah, then I had Pittsburgh, Denver, Miami, Indy, Vegas, Jags, Tennessee, Jets, Cleveland. So yes, I had the Steelers missing the playoffs at 10-7. That's kind of bold, especially picking us to make it over them. When I started this, I was like, all right, well, Steelers, I think I'll definitely have in. But then when I did the math, I'm like, oh shit, I actually had them out. Denver, that's probably going to get me some flack. That going 9-8. They got better this offseason, I think, and they're going to win a game less than they did last year, and missed the playoffs and they made it last year. That's going to get me some flack, but this is just kind of how I have things unfolding out. So yeah, I feel fairly decent, fairly confident with my predictions here. So yeah, I went on for a while, so I'm gonna end the video here. I'll make a separate one for the NFC, then make a separate one for the awards and my playoff predictions. Hopefully that sort of makes up for the lack of videos I've been having. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I will. I have a fantasy draft in an hour, so I might not record it tonight. I'll try to upload this tonight. I might record my NFC video tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Take it easy and have a good one, guys. Thanks for watching.